And what is going on, everybody? Welcome into the AFC South Roundtable presented by Roundtable Sports, guys. We have a lot of fun stuff to get into tonight. But before we get into it and before we bring on the host, I want to let you guys know that this stream is powered by BetUS, guys. And if you guys are looking for a new sports book, BetUS is going to hook you guys up with a 150% deposit bonus on your first deposit using promo code YouTube150 up to $2,000. Then they'll even do $125 on your second and third deposit. So big shout out to this sponsor. Supporting our sponsor definitely supports this AFC South Roundtable. Keep going, and we definitely appreciate them. Now we can go ahead and bring in the host of the show. First, we'll bring in Michael Bishop from the Titan Upload Network YouTube channel. What's going on, Michael?
UCF, it's just another day trying to get through the whole spiel, but I'll tell you what, man. At least we're not sitting too alone at the bottom.
Hey, it's definitely we got plenty of company down here, okay? We got plenty of company. And right now, you know, the Jaguars and Titans, we're not really competing for necessarily last place in the AFC South. We're competing for number one in those tankathon rankings, baby. And you guys are not out-sucking us right now because the Jaguars have that number one spot, and we don't plan on being out-sucked, okay? So next up, we'll go ahead and bring in Derek Larger from the Bring the Juice podcast YouTube channel. What's going on, Derek?
Man, the AFC South is down so bad. We have the last place host hosting and bringing in the second to last place in the division. My gosh, man, this is a really bad time to be an AFC South fan of any kind right now. And, you know, I'm hoping that we have a better week this next week.
And with all that said, guys, somebody has to win this division. And luckily for the Houston Texans, they're probably going to be able to sleepwalk into it. You know, they're going to stick their chest out pretty loud and strong on this roundtable. But once the stream ends, once they're talking amongst themselves, I think they're feeling a little bit nervous about how playoff viable they are. So we're going to go ahead and bring in Ruben from the 713 Houston Sports YouTube channel. What's going on, Ruben?
Man, I'm doing good. I don't know what's with that shaky intro, man. If we get to the playoffs, it's any man's game. But nah, you know, it's a tough one, boys. But excited to be here, man. Let's get it going.
Yeah, man, it's definitely some tough times over here. So I do want to start off, you know, we'll go ahead and get into an injury report because I know we're kind of a little bit over halfway through the season. You know, guys are nicked up. We'll go ahead and start with Michael. Hey, man, what's going on with the Tennessee Titans when it comes to y'all's injury sheet?
Well, right now it looks like L'Jarius Sneed still questionable. I think that's the biggest one we got to go with right now. So, yeah, that money seems to be paying itself off right now for that trade.
And what was a trade? Did you guys give up a second rounder or a third rounder?
Third rounder. So
yeah, so definitely interesting stuff. So Derek, we'll go ahead and go to you next.
Right now, I think the really only major report of an injury right now is Michael Pittman. Went out last week because I think that they realized that him trying to play through his injuries just wasn't doing him or the offense any favors. So right now, that's the only one I can really report on is who knows when Michael Pittman will be back.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and go to you, Ruben. What's going on with you guys?
Yeah, no major injuries to report. It looks like we will be getting Nico Collins at practice hopefully later this week. But other than that, man, no major injuries to report.
Yeah, I know speaking for the Jaguars, we'll definitely get into this later. Definitely some question marks when it comes to what's going on with Trevor Lawrence. This time last week, we didn't really know he was dealing with an injury, but it does look like he does have an injury to his non-throwing shoulder. And it's kind of a situation where, you know, I bet that the Jaguars were in contention, kind of like the Jaguars were last year. He might actually play through it, but I don't know. You know, we'll see how it goes along going forward. But yeah, Tank Bigsby got hurt last game, but he did come back in. So did Tyson Campbell. He dealt with a shoulder injury. He came back in. Devin Lloyd was also a player who left and came back in. So no real big injuries that happened along the Jaguars end. But so, yeah, there's really no excuses for the Jaguars. I mean, we're pretty healthy, but we're just straight up not very good. So before we get into different team talks, we got Eric with a $5 donation. Thank you so much. He says, Jags are tanking, but we're still tuned in for the pain. Hashtag DTWD. And yeah, that's the thing, guys. That's the thing. We have three fan bases in here that are, record-wise, not very good. A lot of people don't have hope. So if you're tuning into this AFC South roundtable, either you're a Texans fan or either you're a diehard fan, okay? Because it is straight up not fun out here in these streets. So thank you for the donation. We also have a $2 donation from Tay. He says Bobby Slowick equals Butterbean can't finish in the end. So yeah, I know we'll get into that later because I know Ruben has some stuff to say. So I do want to go around the round table and kind of talk about just different talking points. And I know I want to start off with Michael again because the Titans I actually thought could have been a pretty sneaky team this year because the Titans, being that they're a smaller market team and also being that, in 2023, they weren't very good. In 2024, they aren't very good. They don't get a lot of national coverage. So we don't really hear a lot about them. But, when it comes to the 2024 season, are you at all surprised at how the Titans are doing? Because it wasn't like this offseason. It didn't seem like they were trying to be bad. I mean, they went out there and signed, Calvin Ridley, like you said, they traded a 3rd-round pick for L'Jarius Sneed. They kept around DeAndre Hopkins, brought in Tony Pollard. So, and obviously they were kind of hoping for a little bit more out of Will Levis. So when it comes to the Titans record right now they're currently sitting at 2-7. Are you at all surprised at how the Titans are doing this year?
I mean, from a standpoint of spending the money the way that we did, we figured that the results might be a little bit better. Just, I think, with the consistency and the inconsistencies of Callahan's play calling, I think trying to get this offensive line meshed together in the right way, you lose one of your key pieces in Lloyd Cushenberry, so that definitely hurts things. But, it's just Will Levis has just been inconsistent at times. You can say that this week there was some progression going forward with him having time to heal up from an arm injury, but right now, it's definitely been an underwhelming season. But throughout the next 8 games, you're hoping that kind of consistency that he showed last week, it's going to continue to progress from there.
Interesting. So, with where the Titans are right now, how are you guys feeling about Brian Callahan right now? Is he, because I know you've had some teams where sometimes coaches only get 2 years, and we've even seen cases where, after 1 year, there's some red flags, maybe they want to get rid of him. So, with Brian Callahan, is there any kind of doubts about him as a head coach? And is there any way maybe he's been very underwhelming, and maybe if the Titans do look to kind of tear apart this roster a little bit and truly do go into a full rebuild, is there a chance that maybe he's not going to be around in 2025?
More than likely he's coming back, and Rand Carthon will be back in 2025. At this point, I think regardless of how many games they finish out the 2024 season, this is going to be one of those transitional periods where you have to see if he's making an impact in the locker room, for which the most part, there's been a lot of positive outfeed from everything and from the players. So you kind of get the sense that they're in the right direction, but it's just getting everything to just click in the right way. But, it's a process. Not every coach is going to hit the ground running. And, Callie right now at this point, it's just he's implementing his system, but there's probably going to be some changes along the way, and it's a learning process. So for the moment and the time being, I think the Titans are on the right road. It's just going to take some consistency going forward.
So do you think right now maybe the biggest issue with the Titans overall is just the inconsistent quarterback play? Or do you think that, maybe the roster isn't very good in certain spots? Maybe the offensive line is kind of getting rebuilt a little bit?
That's exactly what it is. I mean, you've still got a very young offensive line. You've got a quarterback that, for all intents and purposes, for the argument's sake, is really kind of playing a rookie year this year in a whole new system and trying to redevelop himself and trying to fit what Callie's picturing him to do long term. You really only have, one guaranteed weapon, Calvin Ridley, that showed up the last few games, and of course Nick Westbrook-Akina, which is kind of like your number 2 at this point. But you're still trying to find anybody else that can stand out on this roster, and I think that's going to be something that they have to address going into next season.
Definitely interesting stuff. And we definitely feel like the Titans will be looking at potentially a quarterback this upcoming draft. If you guys don't already know what's going on Tankathon, if the season were to end today, the Tennessee Titans do have the number 3 overall pick. Of course, the Jaguars and Giants reach ahead of them, mainly because each of them have 8 losses, as neither of the teams have had a bye week. So they've had more opportunities to lose. But this will definitely be one that we, as Jaguars and Titans fans, definitely pay attention to. So next, we'll go ahead and go to Derek, man. So, gosh, I feel like, of course, there's teams around the NFL that, there seems to be a lot of dysfunction and stuff like that. But, man, the Colts right now, I just can't really understand them, because I understand, you have to put Anthony Richardson in timeout for a little bit after what he did. Okay, that's fine. Bench him against the Vikings on prime time, go ahead. And, of course, after that, he started again against the Bills. And in between that, they said Flacco for the rest of the year. I kind of call BS on that, but we have Flacco again going to get a start this upcoming Sunday. So can you let us in on a little bit of what is going on here? Have they given up on him, or do they just think that Flacco just straight up gives them the best chance to win?
Well, Dalton, I mean, I wish I could tell you. I wish I could tell you. I have no clue. And, that has been because Shane Steichen hasn't said anything. He said nothing. The best info I can give you is Jim Bob Cooter, our OC, today actually talked with the media, and they were trying to be like, why are you guys so vague on giving us an answer as to why you're benching your potential franchise quarterback? Because as far as the giving up on him, the Colts have said they're not giving up on him. They still think he's the future. It's kind of hard to imagine that with the way they've handled this situation. But from what I could gather from his words is that it seems to me that they're obviously trying to be vague with the media because the narratives will spin whatever way they want to. They're going to be less vague with Anthony Richardson because he's the only person that they need to explain this type of situation to. At least that's how they feel about it. I think that they think he is in a situation where I don't necessarily think it's because he's not taking it seriously. I just don't know if he's developing in the way that they want to, because maybe it's like, maybe he's trying to do too much because he feels like he has to. And maybe like his way of developing is not really progressing because maybe every other play he's having to feel like he has to be a hero with it. And maybe it's trying to like do a reset on his thinking and how he approaches each Sunday. That's the best way I can think of it. That's the best way I can think of it. I don't know if that's true, but that's the best way I can think about it. And I mean, still, nonetheless, I don't love that he's, I think they think that if they keep continuing to play him and he's, and he's out there and he's not doing good, and they think that it's going to kill his confidence going forward. I don't know. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But the problem is us Colts fans right now, we're kind of just sitting back and we're just like, we can't believe that this is happening. Like you said, for a year and a half that you were going to let this kid develop and do all these things. And now here you are saying, oh, there's a process going on, but you won't tell us what the process is or give us any details. And you're saying, oh, Flacco gives us the best chance to win. He clearly doesn't. I mean, again, you've had 2 of your worst offensive performances the entire season with Joe Flacco out there at quarterback now. So, Colts fans are just upset, and they should be right now.
So what do you feel like the future of him for the Indianapolis Colts is? Like, do you see where it stands right now, him being the week 1 starter in 2025?
I mean, is there really any other choice? I mean, I really don't think there is, because I don't think Joe Flacco is going to be a multi-year quarterback here in Indianapolis. I don't think that I don't think he's going to want to play after this year. After he gets sacked about 20 more times before the end of the year is up and throws about 5, 6, 7 more interceptions and all these other things, I think he's just going to be like, what the hell's the point? And then at the end of the day, you're not going to draft a quarterback in this draft if you're still going to sit there and say that AR is the future of this team. And the only way you would get anyone other than Anthony Richardson is you go get one in free agency, which again, the Indianapolis Colts have done that a lot. So I mean, if Joe Flacco does end up retiring, you have to have a backup plan. I don't think the Colts really have a backup plan right now at quarterback. So they do have to find someone, but will Anthony Richardson be the week one quarterback? My gut and my feeling tells me yes, but then again, I don't know.
Yeah, and there just seems to be so many more questions than answers right now. I know last year I was extremely impressed with Shane Steichen. I mean, it just felt like he got every single thing out of the Colts team, and led him to go 9-8. A completed pass away from potentially representing the AFC South in the playoffs. So then it just hasn't been sustained. The Colts right now are on a 3-game losing streak. Definitely not over. I mean, they're not out of it, but where it stands, it's definitely just there's something missing there. There's something missing, and I know right now this whole quarterback thing is definitely being talked about a lot. So who knows? Maybe they lose again, and then all of a sudden Anthony Richardson is back in. I know me personally. I mean, I think you got to play Anthony Richardson. I mean, I don't really understand. I mean, I understand trying to go and make the playoffs. You want to put your best players out there to do that. But man, I just feel like if Anthony Richardson is healthy, you don't want to go in at the end of the year still with all these questions about him.
And Flacco isn't. I mean, he's not. I know that everyone talks and even Kurt Warner got involved in it on Twitter today saying oh, well, yes, the offense does theoretically, in my opinion, run better with Joe Flacco. And I sit there and I tell him, I'm like, no, it doesn't actually. We run the ball way worse when Joe Flacco is on the field. Way worse. Astronomically worse. Even in that last game against the Buffalo Bills, Jonathan Taylor had 114 yards. Yeah, sure. But he got half of those yards off one run. And then the other 20 rushes that he had, ended up being only an average of 2.7 yards a carry. We don't do well with that. And when a defense doesn't have to fear a quarterback being able to run, then they don't have to worry about it. They don't hesitate on the RPOs. They don't hesitate on that at all. They just go straight for Jonathan Taylor and they load the box and they force your 40-year-old quarterback that can't throw the ball 50 yards down the field to have to throw the ball. And I mean, his EPA is a -20 right now. I mean, that's way worse than Anthony Richardson's ever was. Yes, from a consistency standpoint, he makes more passes. But the offense is not better with Joe Flacco. It is worse in a lot of different ways. And, I mean, no one is buying the Joe Flacco gives us the best chance to win. I think it was Chris Ballard that told Steichen to make this move so that he could save his job this year. And regardless of what happens with Joe Flacco, I think he thought Joe Flacco was going to take this team to the promised land, give these Colts fans hope, to half the franchise or half the fan base that was like, oh yeah, Joe Flacco out there would be amazing. It's going to give us the hope. Then you lose 2 games in a row. Your offense looks worse than it has all year. And they're just going to stick it out because they're going to give everyone the excuse, oh, well, neither quarterback was winning. I mean, you can't fire any of us now because, we don't have a quarterback. It's the quarterback's fault, not our fault. And I'm so out on Chris Ballard, 100%. I want him gone right now. I want him gone. I don't want him here anymore.
All right. So, yeah, that's definitely something that we're going to be paying attention to. I mean, I think at any moment, Anthony Richardson will be back in the starting lineup. And then I think at the very least, Colts football will be more entertaining for all of us because, Anthony Richardson can throw some bombs, but can also throw some funny interceptions too. So we'll just have to see. So next up, we'll go on to Ruben to talk about the Texans a little bit. And, man, the Texans, they started off this year hot, man. 5-1. It looked like they were just the crown of the NFL. But unfortunately, they have lost 3 out of their last 4 games. Offensive line isn't playing good. Texans fans are calling for, Bobby Slowick's head. Even the casuals out there are saying that CJ Stroud is having this huge sophomore slump. And maybe he's not him. I mean, it's out there. That's not me. That's Twitter saying that. So Can you just give us a little bit about, man, like what's the blame right now for the season when it comes to the Houston Texans?
With the offense, it's just been a disaster all year. If it's not the penalties from the O-line, it's their inability to keep CJ Stroud upright. I think he's the second most sacked quarterback now. If it's not that, it's your play caller, not being able to adjust in the second half. The Texans this year averaging 8 points in quarter 3 and 4. In the past 4 games, the Houston Texan offense has failed to score a touchdown in the second half, and that's god-awful. When you talk about Bobby Slowick, someone who got head coaching interviews for multiple teams in the offseason, I don't think anyone is going to hire Bobby Slowick after this season. It is so disappointing how we were expecting this Houston Texan offense to be one of the best units in the NFL, and man, right now they just stink. And it's just the fact that you cannot adjust whatsoever in the second half. And, Dalton, you hear sophomore slump with CJ. And that's fair, because if it's not your offensive coordinator effing up the game plan, it's CJ Stroud throwing 2 ugly interceptions in the second half, one on the first play, and then the other one where Tank Dell should have been open for a wide open touchdown, but CJ just puts too much air under it. Ugly throw. This offense is a disaster, man, and I don't see it getting better anytime soon, right? It's going to be what we've always seen before. We're taking advantage of a weak division, beating the crappy teams, and then just getting a home playoff game, and I've seen that story before.
And I'm curious, like, when you guys actually like take a step back, because I know as fans and you're watching these games live, it's like, oh, it's CJ. CJ needs to play better, or oh, it's the offensive line. It's like, oh, it's the play calling is bad, but obviously it's a lot deeper than that. Like when you actually take a step back, is there some blame that potentially goes on the GM for, he made the flashy moves, Stephon Diggs, that's a pretty fun move. Of course, Donnell Hunter has been, pretty good for you guys, but is it like, maybe paying a lot of money into a left guard isn't a bad idea, or anything like this? So do you kind of question maybe how the roster is currently constructed? Is maybe D'Amico Ryans a little bit to blame too for having these guys where they're at? Like, as when you actually take a step back and look, like where who it really is to blame right now?
I mean, when you look at the O-line, they're the highest paid O-line in the NFL. And they're one of the worst in terms of pass protection. So that's a disaster right there. It's the entire offense, UCF, really. Because at different points of the season, it was just different issues. And, of course, you've had Nico Collins go out a couple of weeks. You had Stephon Diggs go out a couple of weeks. But the way we are seeing this Houston Texan offense operate, we know it's not sustainable for a deep playoff run. You get in places where you've never gone before. When you talk about D'Amico, I think a lot of people are now starting to criticize the fact that nothing has been done yet, in a way where 4 weeks ago, when we were talking about the offense and these problems started to, come to fruition, he said, everyone has a bad game, and everyone has a bad game. That's what he said multiple times. They asked him about changes to the offense. He says everything's up, up for discussion, and it turns out that's not the case. Kenyon Green, who was out for the season, I don't think he would have got benched unless he got hurt. It seems like D'Amico is sticking up for his guys, and one of those guys is Bobby Slowick. So we are just trying to see what's going to happen in terms of, do you take away play calling duties from him? We saw the Bears do it earlier today, but a lot of people are wondering, is D'Amico Ryans going to be the hard coach or the buddy coach? Man, that's the conversations going on right now.
So interesting. So last question I have for you guys is like, the NFL, it's honestly a game of streaks for me. And it's about being able to go into, the playoffs hot. And obviously you guys started 5-1, but lost 3 out of your last 4. But there are some things that can change. Like, do you think that like the Texans, if they make any kind of moves, obviously the trade deadline is passed, so you can't do anything like that. Like, do you see maybe they can tweak some things around in the Texans being a serious threat when they go into the playoffs?
Oh, absolutely. And the guy is already there. Gerard Johnson, who got interviews in the offseason for offensive coordinator job, he returned for 1 more year. The Texans gave him a pay raise. This is your OC in waiting. And I don't see a scenario where Bobby Slowick is calling plays next year for us. So why not go with Gerard Johnson right now? We saw the Lions a couple of years ago switch play callers and go with Ben Johnson, and we see how that worked out for him. I'm not saying that's going to happen with us, but you need to do something before, you just lose the ideas of going places where you've never gone before, because I see, how it could potentially play out if you don't make a move. But man, you know, you would want to see that these Houston Texan front office realize what's going on with the offense, realize that it's struggling. Your second-year quarterback is struggling, and something has to change.
Yeah. So we'll definitely keep monitoring the Houston Texans. Of course, you know, we've seen them play some high-profile football, but at the same time, like, you know, it's not like they're getting blown out of these games. They're all, you know, pretty much one-score defeats. So, you know, we've seen them at their peak, and we obviously know, you know, how CJ Stroud can be when, you know, things are good around him. So we'll keep monitoring that because, like I said, the Texans are going to be able to sleepwalk into the playoffs. I mean, they could very well have a losing record from this point on out, and, you know, maybe the Colts can, you know, contend a little bit. They can win some games, but, you know, right now, I don't know how confident Derek is about the Colts. It doesn't sound very confident, and I know,
offensively, no. Defensively, yes.
Yeah. And right now, me and Michael's teams are both pillow fighting to get the number 1 overall pick. So we'll
that's a hellacious fight, though.
We play each other twice. You know what I mean? We still haven't played each other. So, you know, we got some serious tank battles coming up, which I'm here for it. So, you know, I know. And if we want to focus on the Jaguars a little bit, the Jaguars are definitely in a weird spot. I mean, we're terrible right now. We're 2-8. I believe we're 2-8. Let me make sure. We're 2-8.
Sure you are.
Yeah, we're 2-8, and you know, we're in a situation where, like I said last week, we saw against the Eagles that Trevor Lawrence did get evaluated when he like kind of dove head first, but a lot of us were thinking he got evaluated for a concussion, and then he got cleared, and then he went back into the game. But now it's an injury to his non-throwing shoulder, and you know, he was kind of practicing last week, but you know, there's legit talk that, you know, you're 2-8. What's really the point of continuing to play? You know, there's a real good chance that he does have surgery. And, you know, right now it's very clear that Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson just don't have a good relationship right now. It's clear. I mean, you can see it. And obviously you're 2-8, and it just doesn't feel like this coaching staff really puts them up into good positions. So, you know, there's a very good chance that, you know, maybe we don't see Trevor Lawrence again this year. And I know that's what I'm hoping for, because I'm kind of in the situation where I don't mind losing games because, one, I want to get rid of everybody. I want for Shad Khan to know what it's like to be a Jaguars fan and actually have the pain of losing games. So, you know, I want to lose in that respect. I obviously want, you know, if we do have a new GM next year, I want the Jaguars' job to be as attractive as possible. And, you know, I think that having the number 1 overall pick is more attractive than number 4 overall pick or number 5 overall pick, you know, so there's that. And especially if, you know, if it's just Mac Jones playing. Mac Jones was pretty bad. 3 turnovers for him last game, just was not a very good game for him. So we're in that situation. And really next week we'll play Detroit in Detroit. So we will most likely get curb stomped, and then the Jaguars have the bye week. Okay. So there's a very good chance. And I'm really, really hopeful that this time next week, we're going to be talking to you guys with interim head coach Mike McCoy and no GM in there. And we can really start thinking about off-season modes and, you know, cranking out the mock drafts, and we can get into all that fun and good stuff. But the unfortunate thing is that to end the season, the Jaguars have the Texans. And then after that, Titans twice, the Raiders, the Colts, all teams with like losing records. We play the Jets too, so that'll probably hurt the tank. But yeah, it's a rough situation. We're 2-8, 7 games left. We just got to get through it. So definitely some interesting stuff there. So now I do want to go ahead and get into the different games, the game recasts. But first, I do want to go ahead and take a look at BetUS. Like I said, these streams are powered by BetUS, and we have some odds for these upcoming games. We have, let's see here. We have the Jaguars as 13-point underdogs against the Detroit Lions. That's a huge spread. We have the Tennessee Titans as 6-point underdogs against the Minnesota Vikings. We have the Texans. Oh, wow. Texans playing Monday Night Football. Didn't even realize that. 8-point favorites against the Dallas Cowboys. And
Should
the Colts.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's it's pretty wild. I mean, it's a Texas rivalry matchup, I guess. I mean, I don't know. Ruben,
it's because it's Cooper Rush. I mean, you know.
Is this a rivalry? The Texans and Cowboys, even though they're AFC NFC.
Ruben, you're muted,
You're
bro.
muted.
I'm sorry. Hell yes, it's a rivalry. I've been hating the Dallas Cowboys even before I was in my daddy's balls. And this rivalry, it goes back. It stems back years. It goes back generations. I don't care how ass I am. You beat the Dallas Cowboys, man. This is the battle for Texas. I mean, I have Cowboys fans to my right. I have them to my left. I'm ready for this matchup. It's going to be a civil war down here in Texas, man. You know how we like to get active. So I'm ready for this week, man. I am ready.
That's right. Shit on America's team, bro.
We're going to go to Jerry's world, and like Jameis Winston said, sometimes you just got to whip them out, show them who's bigger, and that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do.
It's funny. The reason why I asked that is because, I live in Florida. I live in Orlando. So, I'm right in the middle of Jacksonville, Miami, and Tampa. And there really isn't much of a rivalry in Florida between these. Yeah, but I think the rivalries are a little more focused on college football. College football is king down here, man. Florida State hates the Gators. The Gators hate the Hurricanes. I mean, there's a lot of rivalries. You even have UCF in the mix too. So that's kind of where things are, and it's just not as big down here. So with that epic rant that Ruben just had, I'm gonna go ahead and put a 20 spot on the $20 on the Houston Texans to cover. So hey, man, you guys are going to have to win us some money, okay?
And it's not just football, boys. We hate the Texas Rangers. We hate the Dallas Mavericks. Like Panda said, it's not just a rivalry. We hate the entire city. We hate Dallas, and we hate San Antonio, and it's vice versa. And I cannot wait for this.
There you go. So, yeah, guys, appreciate BetUS for sponsoring this stream and powering this stream, guys. Like I said, to start this thing, if you guys don't have a sports book, now is a great time to get in on BetUS, as they're going to offer you a 150% deposit bonus with your first deposit and 125% with your second and third using promo code YouTube150. Always gamble responsibly, never bet more than you can lose, and you can go out there and have a fun time, like putting a little fun $20 down to see what happens. So with all that said, we're going to go ahead and go into the game recaps. So why don't we go ahead and start off with the Indianapolis Colts game. Look, you guys were facing an AFC powerhouse here, the Buffalo Bills, going into this game. We're 7-2. The Colts this game were 4-5, trying to fight back to 500, but unfortunately the Bills just outworked y'all a little bit, winning this game 30-20. So we will go ahead and start with Derek. Derek, give us a little bit of insight on what exactly happened this game.
I mean, what happened is Joe Flacco fucking happened. That's what happened. First throw of the game, and it's a pick six. I got told that only bad quarterbacks do that, or only quarterbacks, aka Anthony Richardson, do that. And they do it in preseason games, which means that they definitely do it in regular season games. Freaking stupid Joe Flacco. And then the next drive, you throw another interception to on a screen pass where you threw it behind Jonathan Taylor and straight to a defensive lineman who was getting blocked at the same time. The guy didn't even know he intercepted it until the ball practically fell in his lap. I mean, it was terrible. It was a terrible way to start. And I mean, there were at least two or three other throws in this game where it should have easily been interceptions for the Buffalo Bills. Flacco's just lucky that they didn't actually get them. And then, of course, that third interception late in the third quarter on a attempt to Alec Pierce. Alec Pierce is wide open 30 yards down the field, and Flacco just overthrows him. Alec Pierce has to jump as high as he could and still couldn't corral the ball. And then it gets tipped and then intercepted by the guy behind him. So, I mean, it was, and not to mention a fumble, that it was a strip sack by Von Miller in the second quarter that gave the Buffalo Bills the ball on like the 45-yard line. So, I mean, it was a complete battle of attrition for the Buffalo Bills. I mean, their defense just had a heyday with Joe Flacco in this offense. I mean, it was just a terrible performance. And as I said before, I mean, Jonathan Taylor, again, you can't let the numbers fool you. 21 rushes for 114 yards. Yeah, that averages out to over 5 yards a carry. But when you look at the actual numbers, once again, when you have that 55-yard run and then you only have like 60 yards the remainder of the game on 20 rushes, that's not impressive. That's not good. That's not something that should be happening for the Indianapolis Colts. And it has been a constant thing. Flacco, when he's out there, the Colts run game struggles. And it has been that way from the very beginning. And Flacco, yeah, his completion percentage is great. But when you're completing most of your passes within 5 to 10 yards on every single one, I mean, there's no explosiveness. There's nothing to push the ball down the field, and no defenses are afraid you're going to take the top off. And it's just them being up close and just waiting for the Indianapolis Colts to be the one to make mistakes. And they do. And Flacco, when you have 4 turnovers, 6 of them in the last 2 games, I mean, this is just terrible offensive game planning and execution. And, you know, I will give Flacco a little bit of credit. There should have been a touchdown after being down 10-0. The Colts did make it down to the red zone, but Josh Downs, a rare Josh Downs drop where he ran a perfect out route and it was going to be an easy walk-in touchdown and he just drops it right at the goal line. It's like, it's funny because that is what caused people like Kenny Moore after the game to say, I don't think people are working as hard as they should. And whatever we're doing in practices and in meetings is not translating to games. And it's things like this where the offense, I mean, I'm not going to give Shane Steichen the entirety of the blame for how the offense has looked this year. The offense has looked bad, and I blame Shane Steichen a lot for trying to make Anthony Richardson turn into a pocket passer when he's not a pocket passer. But, I mean, at the same time, you have wide receivers and other weapons on this team that are continuously failing the quarterbacks when they actually make good throws. And I don't know what to do about that. I mean, I don't know where the accountability is on all the rest of these guys to be like, hey, is somebody going to actually catch a freaking ball here? Like, I mean, what are we doing here? I mean, I felt bad for the defense. The Indianapolis Colts defense actually did their job on Sunday. Josh Allen didn't have a single passing touchdown. There were 2 touchdowns by the Buffalo Bills all game. And 3 of them technically. One of them was a defensive touchdown. I mean, you know, the Colts defense, they didn't allow a single passing touchdown. They intercepted Josh Allen twice. They intercepted him twice. Josh Allen did not have a great game. And, I mean, the Colts defense gave the offense every opportunity to win. They gave the Colts the ball in Bills territory twice, and we scored 3 points out of it. So, I mean, again, it's been the defense is getting tired of the offense. And, I mean, that's kind of what happens. And you know what? If you're going to only give up 23 points to the Buffalo Bills, that's a pretty dang good job. And when you have 2 interceptions and you gave the Colts offense chances to win the game, I mean, the defense did their job enough to win the game, and the offense just didn't.
All right. Well, I have a feeling Derek won't be buying any Joe Flacco jerseys anytime soon. Mike, let's go ahead and go on to you, and let's hear your thoughts on this game.
Yeah, I mean, from Indy's standpoint, I'm just kind of just waiting to see how this quarterback situation falls out, because at some point, you know, I think you got to get Anthony Richard back in there. I think you got to try and get him a little bit more acclimated to the game. I mean, what else do you have to lose at this point? You know, give Buffalo credit. They came out there missing 2 of their key weapons on offense and still were able to get the job done. You know, they're a scary good team. They're going to handle business and get to the playoffs, and they're a dark horse. But, you know, with Indy's situation, I really need to see what Anthony Richardson can do to have a better evaluation of him going forward in the future. And I mean, Chris Ballard, I'm getting the sense that, his clock's very much almost getting ready to hit midnight at this point.
So, Ruben, we'll go ahead and go on to you.
Yeah, I mean, from a Colts fan standpoint, you have to be upset because when you think about Joe Flacco coming in, you are, reminded about what he did last year with the Browns. So you're thinking, okay, maybe we could string together some wins and push ourselves for a playoff push down the road. And that's just not the case. And I would rather lose with my young quarterback than an old Asian quarterback. And unfortunately, Joe Flacco, father time's calling. It seems like he's just regressing. 2 interceptions. You could have got that from Anthony Richardson. And I would be frustrated because when you take a quarterback high in the first round and you're at this point of the season, you're thinking, what are we doing in terms of his development? And if he is indeed the future for Indianapolis, then he needs to be playing on Sunday, man. So I bet this was a frustrating loss for them.
Yeah, and I know for myself, I was a little bit mad at the Colts because I predicted a astounding 31-10 victory by the Bills, and they decided to give themselves a garbage time touchdown. So whatever,
Yes.
it's all good. But yeah, man, it'd be, I could understand like playing Joe Flacco if he was playing good ball and he was at least game managing. You know what I mean? If he was like, at least Gardner Minshew was a good game manager. He wasn't, while he probably took too many sacks, he wasn't giving the ball to the other team all that much. I mean, Joe Flacco, 3 interceptions this game. You've put Anthony Richardson in timeout for long enough. And I was all about putting him in timeout on Sunday Night Football against the Vikings. But at this point, it's like, dude, like Flacco isn't helping you guys win. I mean, look at y'all season. You guys have lost 3 games in a row. So it's, he's not elevating you guys. It's finally time to play Anthony Richardson. If you guys don't make the playoffs, then you guys have wasted way too much time with Joe Flacco. You want to know what you have next year. You know what I mean? And you want to keep having him, go out there and play football because you don't learn sitting down on the bench. You don't. And like, you don't get reps on the bench. And I understand sometimes you may need that mental reset, but time is kind of ticking. He's missed a lot of times in his first 2 years, and finally he's healthy now, and he's not getting any play. So, of course, the NFL, it feels like some of these teams can turn it around pretty quickly. The Colts, I think, have a pretty good nucleus on their team, but, they have to make the decision of, is Anthony Richardson our week 1 guy next year, or do we want to go out there and maybe try to find like a Justin Fields or, one of these guys that, maybe can take the team to at least where we want them to go. So I don't know. It's definitely one to monitor, and definitely one of the more, I think, confusing teams in the AFC South. So next we'll go ahead and go to the Tennessee Titans. Of course, the Tennessee Titans are played the Los Angeles Chargers in Los Angeles. The Chargers under, Jim Harbaugh are really turning things around. They were able to win this game 27-17. So the Titans do drop to 2-7 on the season. We'll go ahead and start with Mike. Give us some takeaways from this game.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing you go with is, Will Levis goes out and plays a pretty solid game after returning from injury. It wasn't without its mistakes, but, you definitely saw progression there. And that's encouraging, especially the fact where the Titans are still trying to get to a point. Is Will Levis the guy? And I think that's going to be the continuous story going through 2024. Throughout the whole game, it's still some of the same things the Titans are trying to take care of business with. Penalties are a big issue. Ended up with 9 penalties, giving up 7 sacks. And the funny thing is, 3 of those were on Will Levis himself. So it's crazy for the fact that this team still kind of makes the same mistakes, and it's just a continuous thing that's going to have to be improved as it goes throughout the rest of the year. But there are progressions going. You see positives with this team as they seem to kind of get some things going the right direction. But unfortunately, for the officiating part, what in the hell are we doing? I mean, come on, NFL, what the hell are we doing? A scoop and score taken away because apparently the damn tuck rule has to come into play and go in favor of somebody that didn't need to have it go in favor of anyway. Fuck the Titans, apparently. We can't get a play where it just cuts our way and we get a break. I mean, UCF, you know what I'm talking about 2 years ago.
I know all about that.
So,
action.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. But unfortunately, as much as I don't want to bring in officiating to the talking point, here we are talking about it. But you know, it's a good defensive effort on our end. You know, for the most part, they held their ground as much as they could. You know, the Chargers had a solid run game. Jim Harbaugh's really got that team clicking in the right direction. They're pretty much all but a lock to get a playoff spot this year. But, you know, regardless, the Titans, it's just you're learning what you can do with what you have. The offensive line, you know, the left side seems to be doing the best they can on that side, and the right side, you know, we're going to need help in the draft going forward. But I mean, realistically, you know, all you can do at this point is just take the positives from it, and you know, even from the negatives, just build off what you have. But I mean,
Well, so
for
Ruben,
all in
we'll
all,
shoot it over.
Titans
Oh,
handle
yeah.
business.
Yeah. All right, Ruben, we'll shoot it over to you.
Yeah, you know, probably one of the best games you've seen from Will Levis all year, and he doesn't give you that stupid turnover that ends up in a meme. You know, offensive lines still are an issue. Michael mentioned sacked 8 times, you know, but I still think they were able to move the ball through the air and a little bit on the ground. When you lose DeAndre Hopkins and you see Calvin really step up, that is a good sign. And this is what you wanted to see from Will Levis all year. Yes, you could still lose their game, but don't be the reason why you are, you know, the reason why we have an L next to our name. The Tennessee Titans, they have a very good defense, in my opinion. I think they've had a good defense all year. They're just being plagued by horrible quarterback play and, you know, some spotty play calling. They're looking for the draft. Like both of you guys have mentioned, Tankathon, tough loss for the Tennessee Titans, man. But the Chargers, a very good 6-3 team.
Yeah, so I guess I'll go next, and then we'll go to Derek. So yeah, with this one, I mean, I think it is encouraging that Will didn't have any interceptions, and his numbers were decent. I mean, 18 for 23, 175 yards, 2 touchdowns, and I think the big number is 0 interceptions because that's where he's definitely crippled the Titans. But I don't know how much Titans fans really care about that because I don't know if they're actually saying, all right, this is our guy going forward. Of course, you know, it's a different situation than the Colts are with Anthony Richardson because, of course, the Colts invested a number 4 overall pick in Anthony Richardson, and the Titans invested a 2nd-round pick, you know, in Will Levis. So it's definitely not the same kind of, you know, capital involved there. So I do, you know, and like to see, I guess they're getting Calvin Ridley a lot more involved. Last 2 games were pretty big for Calvin Ridley when it comes to getting him the ball, and he's definitely very volatile. I know that for myself. I mean, he can, you know, really show up with some games, but, you know, there's games where he just disappears, and he obviously doesn't like, you know, not getting targets. So, yeah, the, you know, Titans lose to a pretty good Chargers team, 27-17, kept it pretty competitive, but it's on the next week for the Tennessee Titans. So, Derek, we'll go on to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because, you know, both of these teams offensively weren't great. I mean, there were some things that they both did really good and some things that they did bad at times. But obviously, like Michael said, you know, the big aspect here is, you know, the Tennessee Titans were, you know, the more undisciplined team, and, you know, from giving up all those sacks and committing all those penalties. You know, it's stuff like that that'll stop drives from, you know, being able to continue. And I'm sure that's probably the biggest reason. I mean, this game definitely the score a little bit closer than it actually was. I mean, obviously the Chargers were up 17 going into midway through the 4th quarter. Game was pretty much over at that point. So it's kind of the same thing of the Indianapolis Colts scoring their touchdown at the very end of the game when they were down 17 also. Pretty much the exact same thing. So, yeah, I mean, Chargers handle business. They were just the more disciplined team, and, you know, were able to take care of business.
All right, so we'll go ahead and move on to the Jacksonville Jaguars. If you would have told me before this game that we were going to pick off Sam Darnold 3 times and hold the Minnesota Vikings to 0 touchdowns, I would have been like, hey, man, easy dub. We got this. But unfortunately, the Jaguars were not able to win this one. And, of course, Mac Jones was the starting quarterback this game, and he was pretty terrible. He went a 14 for 22 this game, 111 yards passing, 2 interceptions, and he even had a fumble at the opponent's 25-yard, actually, no, at their own 25-yard line, which the Minnesota Vikings were able to convert into 3 points. Just the Jaguars, the theme of the season is just finding ways to lose. And always seem to find creative ways to lose. And it feels like once we run out of different ways to lose, the Jaguars lose. And that's what happened. The Jaguars lose 12-7 to the Minnesota Vikings, who are 7-2 right now. They're just a really, really good coach team. The thing that I don't understand is like the fact that they're just not trying to get the ball to Brian Thomas Jr. Brian Thomas Jr. didn't have a target until the fourth quarter. He had 3 targets and 2 catches. If I'm the Jaguars at this point, just drop back and chuck it up to him. Let him make a play. You just try stuff. And it's just pretty abysmal, this coaching staff. And then even Doug Peterson got really snippy with the media after the game. And he's a dead man walking right now. And like I said, Jaguars played the Detroit Lions on Sunday. So I'm just really hoping that this time next week, Doug Peterson, the head coach, are gone, and the GM Trent Baalke are gone, and we can really move forward with projecting, what offense, what head coach candidate we want, what GM candidate we want. It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad, and plenty of third downs, allowed to us. Time of possession, Vikings had the ball 42 minutes versus the Jaguars 18 minutes, 28 first downs for the Vikings, 10 first downs for the Jaguars. And I give the Jaguars credit. They were clamping the Vikings when they needed to, but just offense wasn't good. I think Mac Jones kind of showed exactly what Trevor Lawrence does for this offense. And, this offense without Trevor Lawrence is absolutely nothing. So it just, I think Trevor Lawrence is able to hide a lot of deficiencies for this offense. So it's whatever. I don't mind a loss. Honestly, when I look forward, I, of course, would like that #1 overall pick, but also it's easier for me to lose to the Vikings than sit here and necessarily cheer for the Jaguars, lose to the Titans. And, it'd be fun to be able to beat the Texans. But, this kind of loss, I don't really mind as much. So, yeah, we're going to move forward. So next we can go ahead and go up to Derek. Derek, what were your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I'm looking at the stats as you're saying them too, and I'm just like, that's insane. I mean, how in the world you guys didn't allow a touchdown in this whole game is just absolutely bonkers to me. I can't believe that the Minnesota Vikings had the ball for literally like 75% of this game and yet somehow did not end up getting a touchdown at all. I mean, they out-yardaged you guys by almost 3 times the amount. I mean, it's just it does kind of bring up the point that, like, hey, if you had your actual quarterback in, then this game might have had a completely different outcome. I really think that it would, because I certainly don't think Trevor Lawrence would have ended up having only 87 total yards from himself. So it is just a all around terrible game. And I mean, Sam Darnold throwing 3 interceptions. It is funny. He's 24-38 for 241 yards, but yet has the 3 interceptions. I mean, it's kind of what the Colts did to the Minnesota Vikings early in the game too. Like, Sam Darnold was taking them down the field, but just weren't able to actually finish drives. And it was kind of the exact same thing here. Yeah, I was watching that game or looking at the score as I was kind of rewatching the Colts game too. And I'm like, there's no way that Jacksonville's about to do this, right? Like, I was like, there's no way. Because then I'm going to have to hear Dalton not only, say, oh, we could do it and the Colts couldn't, but then have to hear him say that, we're ruining, the tankathon that we're trying to stay on. It's just, I don't even know. The numbers of this game are truly shocking to look at a game like this. I'm actually kind of sad that I didn't actually watch this game in person, because that would have been a spectacle.
Absolutely. We can go ahead and go on to Mike. Mike, what did you think about this one?
Yeah, if anything, give credit to the Jaguars defense. I mean, they came out there and really did one thing to the offense of the Vikings that a lot of teams haven't had an opportunity to do. I mean, you brought, a solid quarterback play pretty much back down to earth. The Vikings, I think in the last few weeks, they're really starting to crash and look like a team that I think were a little bit of a fraud at this point. But I think the biggest thing for the Jaguars going forward, they're really going to have to rely on their defense and just kind of lean into it going forward for the rest of the year, because, with Trevor Lawrence being a major question mark, And Mac Jones being an even bigger question mark, the defense definitely showed that they could show up and make a difference. But, will that end up being a win for them down the road?
All right, and we'll end off with you, Ruben.
Yeah, this is a game where you definitely feel like if T-Law is playing, you win it. And, UCF, I know what it's like to pick off an opposing quarterback 3+ times and still lose the game. Mac Jones gets to start, and he has 2 opportunities in the fourth quarter, right, late in the game to win it. And he throws just, an ugly go up and get him interception, man, which it just highlights what Mac Jones's career has been. 12-7. You don't allow the Vikings to score a touchdown. You actually pick off, Sam Darnold in the end zone. Tough loss for Jacksonville, man, especially knowing that the other team couldn't score. But this is the way it's been going all year for Jacksonville, man. I feel like you guys are just ready for the offseason, man, ready for the draft.
You said it best right there, man. And before we get on to this last game, I wanted to give a big shout out to Aaron J. Uplifting Hours. He said, salute to all y'all, best division. And hey, we may not be the best division, but definitely have some passionate fans. And, one of the best ways to support us is, drop a like on this stream. Also, guys, all of these links for our channels are down below. We got some great YouTube channels out here if you want to get some more extended coverage, based solely on, these different teams. And also, before we get into the last game, if you guys do have any questions for us or want to shout anything out, we do read all super chats, so you can get that in right before, we go ahead and end this. So thank you so much for the super chat. We also got a super sticker from Truett Trusler. Thank you so much, man. And we're going to go ahead and end this, and we're going to talk about the pretty fun game. I guess if you're if you're an NFL fan, I don't think it was that fun for Lions fans, and definitely not for Texans fans, as the Texans are in a little bit of a funk right now. Like I said, lost 3 of their last 4, but with how bad the AFC South is, they're still 6-4. It's a good record. They're probably going to, honestly, 8 wins might win this division. 8-9 might get you in. So you guys are definitely in a very good position, but you guys do lose a statement game here on Sunday Night Football against the Detroit Lions, 26-23. Ruben, tell us about it.
I mean, the first half, you think this is a new Houston Texans team. Entering this game, the Detroit Lions had the number 1 offense in the NFL, highest scoring offense in the NFL, and you were able to shut them down for the first half. You saw Jared Goff throw just interceptions, and he rarely does that. And what failed for you, it was your offense in the second half. You're up 23-7. You're shocking the world right now. And what was crazy, boys, is I felt this, kind of dark pit in my stomach. Like, man, I know what's about to happen. We are going to go scoreless. We are going to go lifeless. And that is exactly what happened. And you were able to get 2 more interceptions. The second half adjustments have plagued this Houston Texans team all year. Like I just mentioned, only 8 points in quarters 3 and 4, no touchdowns in the last 4 games. It is a problem what is going on with the Houston Texans offense. On the defensive side, it's elite. And you were without Will Anderson Jr. and were still able to get 5 interceptions. Both of your rookies had 2 apiece. The better football team won, man. The more aggressive team won. And this is kind of another thing we've been complaining about. The Texans just, their willingness to settle for field goals, not go for the kill, but they're willing to win by 3, 2, 1, hell, half a point if they need to. Right now, you're hearing a bunch of players-only meetings happen in the locker room. That is never a good sign. And we have already had 2 this past week, and it looks like we might have a 3rd one. Boys, UCF said it, we can sleepwalk and still get into the playoffs, and that's not what I want this team to fall in. But a game that you lost, you had the number 1 team by the throat, and you let them get out and ended up beating you, man. It felt like I was in a boxing match, a UFC match, and I was just throwing rights, lefts, and I just could not knock the guy out, and he ended up winning by decision, dude. A tough loss for us, boys. But yeah, I mean, what more can I say? The only thing holding back this team is this Houston Texan offense, which is surprising when you have CJ Stroud and a lot of talent around there.
Yeah, and I can go ahead and go next. And I'll be honest with you, I thought I was going to be eating my words on this roundtable today because, I had made this statement that, the Texans, they need the signature win, and they beat the Bills. So I was like, okay, these guys are legit. So, I thought that, with this game, they were, it might have been a tough battle, but I did think that they were eventually going to lose. And man, when they were up 23-7 at halftime, I went to bed. I was like, man, that's pretty good game. Good for the Texans. Maybe they've found themselves. I mean, I know it was an ugly loss to the Jets, but there's something about that matchup that just isn't working out for them. But man, for the Detroit Lions to be able to come back and win this one, you know, they basically scored all the points in the second half and just storming back and just going on a 19-0 run to win this thing. And yeah, it was definitely potentially a statement game for the Houston Texans. You know, they're now, 6-4 on the season. And I know, last year when you look at the Texans, they won the AFC South. They even won a home playoff game. But, I think now it's not about reaching the divisional round. I think it's about being able to go to the AFC Championship game, win the AFC Championship game, and get into the Super Bowl. But, I will say, if you're a Houston Texans fan, I wouldn't hang your head too much because, it's not about who the best team is in September. And clearly the Texans were a very good team in September. It's not about who's the best team in mid-November. It's about who the best team in January is, okay? And, we even see the Minnesota Vikings at 7-2 right now. It feels like at some point they're going to dip. So there is some time to figure some things out. It does feel like the Texans need to look internally, maybe, hand play calling duties to somebody else. Maybe, I don't know how much they can switch around the offensive line. Nico Collins is coming back at some point, which, CJ Stroud statistically is a lot different player when Nico Collins is in the building. So, maybe the Texans can turn this thing around. But, right now it feels like they just have to look at themselves and figure out, where to go with it. So
a lot of soul searching.
We can go ahead and go to Mike to get your thoughts on this one.
I mean, Ruben, I feel for you. This was definitely a Dennis Allen moment for you guys. The Lions were who you thought they were. You just couldn't get them down on the chopping block and cut the head off. But, I mean, regardless of the game, you guys came out and you just fist fought them. I mean, it was a really classic, just, punch in the mouth, gridiron kind of football game. But, regardless of all that, you all really showed you got what it takes. You're just getting to that point to finish. And like UCF said, if you can figure that out once December and January rolls around, you guys will be fine. But, I'll also give a shout out to John Mechie for showing up and showing out, for the fact that you're still trying to find more weapons. Mechie's really showing up for you guys.
All right. We can go on to Derek now.
The Detroit Lions are now the first team in NFL history to throw 5 interceptions in a game, be down by at least 15 points, and win that game. So congrats, Houston Texans. You allowed the Detroit Lions to achieve history, and not a very good history for the Detroit Lions other than the win. I mean, that was insane what was going on. I mean, people were saying literally this game was drunk on every single thing you could possibly think of. And that's what it was. I mean, let's not, I see all the people in the chat being like, oh, Detroit is just that good. Like, no, they're not. They gave Houston every opportunity to win that game by like 25 points. And yet they couldn't do it. I mean, I'm not saying that Houston's not a good team, clearly, but they're fragmented on so many levels right now. I mean, the worst part about yesterday, you saw the frustration from Joe Mixon on the sideline. Joe Mixon was throwing his helmet all over the freaking sideline. That dude was pissed because every time he touched the ball, he never got a chance to get past the line. 25 carries for 46 yards. That's terrible, especially since all season Joe Mixon's been tearing people up. I mean, I got to imagine how frustrating that was. And I mean, it ain't like the Detroit Lions has been an unbelievable defense at stopping the run. I mean, yeah, they've been good, but I mean, that is bad, especially for how good the Houston Texans have been this year, even with the offensive line struggling the way they have recently. They've still been able to run the football against some pretty good defenses. So that was surprising. So you couldn't run the football, and then you had to rely on CJ Stroud doing it again. And yeah, CJ Stroud's in a sophomore slump. No doubt about it. I mean, it's clearly not all his fault. I mean, yeah, the OC not adapting, the offensive line clearly has had a lot of protection issues. And of course, he's been missing his best weapon and sometimes his 2 best weapons. And I think we have come to find out that, Tank Dell's not a number one wide receiver. I mean, he was really great last year to start, but you haven't been seen Tank Dell take over games yet at all this year. And he's had plenty of opportunities to do that. And in this game, he wasn't even your third leading receiver in this game. I mean, I expected more from Tank Dell, especially all year. I mean, congrats to John Mechie for being able to, do what he did, coming back, getting his first NFL career touchdown. I mean, and kudos to the freaking defense of the Houston Texans, man. I mean, how pissed off would you be if you intercepted a guy who I don't believe threw that many interceptions in the entirety of the year prior to that game? I'm pretty sure
prior to the game, he had 14 touchdowns to 4 interceptions.
Exactly. You caused him to more than double his interception total in that game, and you still found a way to lose. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to dog on Ruben, man, but I mean, as much as my defense hates our offense right now, your defense was probably throwing fists with some of your offensive players.
Hey, our defense didn't even allow a touchdown. I feel you guys.
It was bad, dude.
Man, which is why you're hearing about these player-only meetings, and that's never a good sign.
Oh, you don't like the player-only meetings?
Nah,
those aren't fun.
Bad, dude.
It's never things don't turn around very well. Honestly, that's hearing you say that actually concerned me a little bit. Because,
we've had 2 in the past week, and we might have a third, which is, they're all being led by Joe Mixon. He's the one who, he's saying he feels like we got a Super Bowl caliber team in terms of talent. It's just something not clicking. And right now, I think we all know what the issue is, and it's just whether or not D'Amico Ryans is going to realize it and tell one of his boys, one of his hires from San Fran, that you're not doing a good job and we need to switch it up.
And it really is amazing that Bobby Slowick was that close to being a head coach, and now it feels like a lot of teams might have avoided a little bit of a bullet. So,
oh my God.
Yeah. So with all that said, that's all we got for you guys tonight. Thank you guys so much for tuning into the AFC South Roundtable, brought to you by Roundtable Sports. And also, guys, before we end off, these streams are all powered by BetUS, guys. 150% deposit bonus using promo code YouTube150. They have 24/7 customer support, quick 24-hour payouts. So lots of good stuff going on over there. We'll head go around the table. Everyone going to say their pieces and where they can, what kind of content they got upcoming. What you got coming up, Derek?
Just more videos about, trying to understand what is going on with this Indianapolis Colts team, and because clearly none of us do.
What about you, Michael?
Hit the Titan Upload Network for all your Titans needs and info every week.
Let's hear it, Ruben.
H-Time to with John, baby. We're going to get this back and going and have some fun times. But great show today, boys, man. Sorry we all took the L this week.
Yeah, man. 0-4 this week, but we have a fans-only meeting coming up this Thursday. We're going to be doing the previews for the upcoming matchups. So hope to see you guys all there. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. On your way out, please drop a like, and we'll catch you guys next time.